Welcome into Fast Break. Ashley Liotis and Megan Caffrey with you here. Can you believe it, Big East women's basketball fans? The final weekend of conference play is finally upon us.
I can't believe it's here. Like we talked about before, my first season here with the Big East, it has just flown by. So much good basketball, so many good storylines, and here we are in the final weekend of regular season play with still a lot on the line.
Oh, yes. There's plenty to get into on today's show. Coming up, we'll hear from Fox Sports play-by-play John Fanta breaking down the late storylines in conference play. Also, we head out to Omaha to learn a little bit more about the Creighton culture of the Creighton Blue Jays coming up. But first, Ashley, let's take a peek at the standings to see how things shook up after this past weekend of conference play.
Yeah, there were a couple things that were decided here. So, of course, saw this coming a little bit, but it's never final until it's final. DePaul winning that outright title and that #1 seed in the tournament next week after their win against Georgetown on Friday. And also Marquette clinching a bye for that first round. Now, Megan, we have 5 of these teams fighting for a bye this weekend as we head over into Chicago next week for the tournament.
And how about that? I mean, we emphasize it so much every single time, but every single game matters. And now coming down exactly to the final weekend of conference play, every game really matters for these teams.
Yeah, there are so many tight matchups right there. You can see that middle chunk right there of the standing. So many of these teams are neck and neck, and a lot of them play each other this weekend.
Yep, so a lot of fun things are going to shake out. Now let's head over to our first headline of the week, which is Harry Perretta notching his last home game regular season win for the Wildcats.
It was huge because we knew this was going to be a tough one for them coming in. Of course, a ranked team in their house, but they brought the heat. They went 2-0 on the weekend, and for head coach Harry Perretta's final game at home, regular season game at home after 42 seasons, it ended in an incredible upset.
Oh, an incredible upset over then number 12, DePaul. Just look at the celebration. You see him hugging Coach Bruno right there, and then his team coming over to celebrate with him. I would kill to have a look at that sign and see all the signatures, the beautiful notes. I mean, if you were watching that game, you could see, or even if you were at the game especially, you could see the pavilion was packed. I mean, I don't think that there was a seat that wasn't taken.
Yeah, and I think somewhere I saw at least 50 former players. I think it was way more than that, to be honest with you. So much emotion inside of that gym, especially after they won. It was a huge win in general, but I think the way they did it and the way they went out and put him out on his final regular season home game was just incredible. And they presented him with that jersey you saw there, the number 42, to commemorate his 42 years there. So a lot of love inside that gym.
A lot of love, a lot of tears. I definitely cried at the end of that, for sure.
A lot of tears, I know, yeah.
Another team that actually went 2-0 this weekend as well, Ashley, were the Butler Bulldogs. They defended Hinkle and went 2-0 at home this weekend.
Yeah, they came in, Creighton actually came in averaging on Friday 11.3 turnovers, Megan, but Butler forcing 18 of them, that resulting in 27 points. Talk about that Hinkle magic. You love to see that. And there she is, Kristen Spolier, in her final game at Hinkle. She got 13 points in that final game for her, so major congrats to her.
Yeah, and Kristen Spolier, she is the engine that makes this Bulldogs team go. She's third in the league in scoring, averaging 18.5 points per game. However, this Bulldogs defense has been lights out. They're the third best scoring defense in the conference, and that has a lot to do with their steals. Umu Torre leads the league in steals per game. She is just really feisty on defense. You do not want to go up against her.
Yeah, someone else who's been lights out for a few games this season, and more so recently, Leilani Correa. This weekend, she had her third 30-point game. Just insane.
The freshman for St. John's is really just coming to life at the perfect time. I mean, think about the freshman talent that we have all over the Big East really this year has been fantastic. But Leilani, she can score. She can not only hit threes, she's got a great pull-up jumper. She also has length on her, too. She's going to go after those rebounds as well on the team.
Yeah, she's actually one of 2 Big East players this season to have 3 30-point games. The other one, I don't know, you may have guessed it, Creighton's senior, Jalen Agnew. So a senior and a freshman, both able to do big things. But I think for Leilani, a big, bright future for her. I'm very excited to be able to watch her play as things progress in the next few seasons for her.
Yeah, and you hope momentum is a real thing, especially when you're coming down the stretch. And so you're hoping for Leilani that this momentum comes into the final weekend of conference play, and then The big question is, can it go into the tournament? She is a freshman, so you don't have that tournament experience just yet, but you're hoping momentum sticks behind you.
Yeah, speaking of momentum, a lot of teams hoping they can have that this weekend and carry it through to the tournament. You actually were able to sit down with Fox Sports play-by-play and also a friend of the conference here in the studio, John Fancy. You guys were able to talk about kind of some scenarios as far as what next week means, getting into tournament play. Let's take a listen of what John expects to happen.
We are gearing up for the final weekend of regular season conference play as I get to welcome in Fox Sports play-by-play, John Fanta. John, hey, how's it going? Been a while.
It's great to be back with you, MC, at the table at the perfect time of year as we turn the calendar to March.
And here is what we know with women's hoops right now, John. The DePaul Blue Demons are the outright regular season champions. They also are the #1 seed in the Big East tournament, and Marquette has a first-round bye. Now we have 5 teams fighting for that first-round bye. What does it say about the strength of the league this season?
Well, it says that quarterfinal Saturday in the Big East tournament, March 7th, inside Wintrust Arena, is going to be wild. Throw out the seedings because your 2-7, 3-6, 4-5 matchups could go any way. In the past, you've gone into the Big East tournament. If you're the 2 seed, you feel pretty good about your path because it's meant more times than not that you avoid DePaul in the bracket and that you're going to face some teams that aren't named DePaul and you could get past the 7 seed, move on to the semifinals. You are not going to be able to coast because from 2 to 7 in this conference, even though Marquette's also clinched a bye and you've got 5 teams fighting for one, from 2 to 7, only 2 games in the loss column separate those teams. And the 3 teams that have 7 losses in the Big East are all home for their final 2 games this week. And what it says is this league is loaded with parity. And for those teams that are still in the hunt of an NCAA tournament berth, Marquette and Creighton, the road is not an easy one from this last weekend of the regular season and into the Big East tournament where they may still have work to do.
Now let's take a little bit of a closer look at these matchups that we have coming up this weekend. We mentioned it right off the bat, DePaul. Their last game is at Marquette this Sunday. The Blue Demons are coming off just their second loss in conference play. How crucial is this game for DePaul on Sunday?
Very crucial because you might think, oh, well, DePaul's got the Big East regular season title locked up. Maybe they won't go 100%. No, they'll be going 110%. Why? Because they're still trying to host in the NCAA tournament. And the Blue Demons need to win this game if they're going to host at Wintrust Arena in the first and second rounds. At least I feel that way because they're trending in the wrong direction in regards to that. But also for DePaul, they need to put together a complete performance ahead of the Big East tournament, then go into that with momentum. So for the Blue Demons, it's about finding themselves offensively. They did not have that high-octane offense against Villanova last Sunday, just 52 points in that loss. And they're going to have their hands full because on the other side is a Marquette team that has been the surprise of this conference. I believe that Megan Duffy is the Big East Coach of the Year. Her team was picked 9th. They're up to #2 in the conference. And Selena Lott has been the most improved player in the Big East. 15 points per game, nearly 6 assists per game for Selena Lott. She's a winning player who makes winning plays.
Now, how about those 3 teams who are at 9 and 7 right now, John, that you mentioned before? Creighton, St. John's, and Seton Hall. All 3 of those teams are home this weekend. How important is that to be able to play at home in the final weekend of regular season play?
Well, I think it's crucial for Creighton. They need to go 2-0 this weekend. They need to handle business over Villanova and Georgetown. It's not going to be easy. Friday night, FS1 7 Eastern time. Hope you join us from Omaha. You get the conference's top 2 scorers. Jalen Agnew for Creighton, Maddie Siegrist for Villanova. Siegrist undoubtedly has locked up that Big East Freshman of the Year because she's one of the best freshmen in the nation. So those 2 players going up against each other, it's going to be theater out at Creighton on Friday night. Plus, Harry Paretta's Wildcats seemingly are playing with a chip on their shoulder. And then in the metropolitan area for Seton Hall and St. John's, they both could very well go 2-0. I think the key dimension here is what Butler does at Carnesecca and Walsh Gym. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Bulldogs match up with those 2 teams who they lost to the first time around.
Now, who is your dark horse that we're looking at coming down the stretch, John?
It's the team that when I've watched them hit their best gear, they show that they could be the best team in this conference. Now the question is, can they bottle it up over the course of 3 days? Hopefully for their sake, not 4. That's St. John's. Joe Tartamella's team has the athleticism, if Alyssa Alston is playing, They've got the explosiveness. They can turn it up a notch defensively. And they have matchup nightmare players in Leilani Correa. And then Kadasha Hoppe can just go off at any moment. For St. John's, the question is this: can they do it for 40 minutes? When they are playing their best basketball, though, Megan, they're a team that could just as easily be in the top 3 of this conference. A real dark horse Joe Tartamella has, and it bears noting that his program has a Big East tournament title back in 2016. That was their first since the late 1980s.
John Fanta, Fox Sports play-by-play. We are so happy to have you on the show. Have fun this weekend.
Megan, thanks for having me.
Stuff right there. Thank you to John for coming in to talk women's hoops with you. But I think to his point of St. John's being a dark horse this season, we saw what happened back in 2016. They were able to come into the tournament as a number 4 seed and win it. So I'm very eager to see how things play out in Chicago next week.
One of the few reasons that I love March, because you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen.
No clue what's
and
going to
that
happen.
starts with conference tournaments. Now let's head over to our favorite part of the show every single week, which is Fast Breakdown. This week we're taking a little bit of a closer look at the Villanova Wildcats. They went 2-0 this past weekend, beating the top 2 seeds in the conference, starting with Marquette on Friday night.
Yeah, this was an incredible game. Very much carried by 2 of their top seniors, Mary Gadeka and Bridget Herlihy. Again, a lights-out performance. I know you have a lot on them. Tell us more about how they were able to make this happen on Friday night.
Well, I think when you're looking at this game, Ashley, we're seeing all the scoring, but what stood out was Villanova's defense. They held the Golden Eagles to their lowest scoring output of the entire season. Get this, Ashley. Marquette scored just 5 points in the second quarter. And that has a lot to do with the defensive leadership from these seniors in Mary Gadeka and Bridget Herlihy. And as everyone always says, defense leads to offense.
Yeah, and here we are, this game we talked about already. We're going to keep talking about this one for a long time to come, I think. On Sunday, they were able to upset DePaul, as we mentioned. Cameron Onken recording just the second triple-double in program history to lead Villanova with 12 points, 10 assists, 18 rebounds, and Maddie Segrist also having quite the game as well.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the seniors on Friday. How about the freshman on Sunday? She scored 29 points, breaking the single-season freshman scoring record for the Wildcats that had stood for 36 years, Ashley. I mean, we've talked about her all season, and it is just lights out. She can score from absolutely anywhere on the court. It's amazing to watch.
It's insane. As I know, we were talking a little bit earlier, Villanova, the first team since the 2015-2016 season to sweep that Marquette DePaul weekend. It was actually Villanova to do it back on January 8th in 2016 against Marquette, and then a couple days later against DePaul. So really good stuff there.
And what better way to do it than in head coach Harry Paretta's final regular season game, regular season home game coaching for the Wildcats.
I feel like this is a movie. Like at some point, there's something in there. There's a story to be told on the big screen.
Yeah, and it was an emotional day at the Finneran Pavilion for sure. And courtesy of Villanova Athletics, we have some of the sights and the sounds from that celebration.
Has given his heart and soul to the Wildcat community for 42 years, and we at Villanova are deeply appreciative. Villanova University congratulates Harry on all his accomplishments and thanks him for what he's given to the school, the game of women's basketball, and the Wildcat community. In recognition of his 42 years as the head coach of the Villanova Wildcats.
Quite the emotional weekend there. And I mean, you know, I think we were talking about this a little bit last week. Head coach Harry Paretta, maybe it's finally sinking in, you know, on Wednesday after the game. I know he's getting ready for this week. I actually will be seeing him on Sunday, so I'm anxious to hear from him about how he was able to kind of gather all that up, and who knows if it came out this week.
And we certainly saw that emotion. You could see Coach Paretta tearing up a little bit right there. I think what gets you is when you were watching the in-arena feed after the game had finished, it showed Coach Paretta and his sons. And when they were younger, coming to all the games. Yeah, and they were there to also be there for their dad in such a huge moment for him. So, I mean, I have teared up multiple times about this.
And this is a huge thing because, I mean, all these coaches put in so many hours. And when you're talking about 42 years, I mean, his kids and, you know, his whole family, his wife and everything, it takes a toll on everyone, you know. I'm sure those kids were growing up in that gym, and this is just as much their literal victory as it is for him.
Now, another team besides Villanova who is fighting for a bye in the Big East tournament for that first round are the Creighton Blue Jays. And we went out to Omaha a little bit earlier this season because one thing that sticks out to you when you're thinking of the Creighton Blue Jays is head coach Jim Flannery has never had a player transfer from his program. Why? Because of the culture. And we went out to Omaha to figure out what is so special about this Creighton culture.
The entire recruitment with Creighton compared to other schools, it was just different. Like when you talk to other schools, they wanted to know like some facts about you, but it wasn't necessarily you as a person. Whereas Creighton, they took a genuine interest in who I was outside of basketball, and then I felt like their morals and values kind of lined up with what I was looking for, so it was really just perfect.
The biggest thing that stood out to me during my recruitment at Creighton is the effort. They made it a point to really build a relationship with me and my parents. They were constantly in contact with me, asked me how my day was, really getting to know me as a person and not just a basketball player, and I think that makes a world of a difference.
We think it's important to treat people the right way, to treat them well, to be demanding, but also to take care of them and let them know that we're here for them, we're here to listen.
Flan understands that basketball is just a small part of life and there's a lot more to life than that. And I honestly think that that contributes to our success on the court because it takes some of the pressures off you and you kind of just are free to play and to grow and to know that it's not going to be perfect.
We're also about more than just the athletic experience and the student experience. I think it's important that you give them an opportunity to experience as much of Creighton as is possible for a student athlete. So we probably monopolize their time a little bit less than some programs do, and when we are on the road, we let them do things that are cultural and educational.
When you're not constantly at each other's necks in practice, and we get to go do fun things when we go on these trips, so you get to learn a lot about each other. You know, there's so many examples of kids that you would never put together as friends that become really, really close friends, that it shows you the importance of having those off-court encounters.
Coming into college, you don't really know what to expect, but the culture here and the people here, you have 11 built-in best friends. And I can say for a fact that if I'm having a bad day, every single teammate would be able to just listen and give advice, whether you really need to hear it or not.
The one thing that strikes me the longer I've been in coaching is just how great a job our players do at looking out for one another. Juniors and seniors are really mindful of the adversity maybe and the stumbling blocks that freshmen and sophomores are going to go through, and I think they do a great job.
The people here, the community here, the experience you have here, teammates, all of that, when you reflect back on it, it's well worth it.
Good stuff right there. I was able to have Creighton a couple times this year, a couple different games when they were on that New York swing, and you can see it. I mean, you know, they fell that weekend, but, you know, you can see the team bond and why these women love to play there.
Culture definitely speaks for itself. It's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's take a look at the final weekend of conference play that is upon us. We cannot believe it. I'm so sad to see the regular season go.
I know. It happened very quickly, like I said, my first season, but I know it gets faster and faster every time, every season, I feel like. But we have a very good lineup this weekend. No games on Saturday, so we're just talking Friday and Sunday here. We got Villanova taking on Creighton. This game is our FS1 game of the week. That is going to be John Fanta and Monica McNutt on the call for that one. And then we got Butler at St. John's here in New York, Big East Digital Network there. Xavier at Seton Hall at 7 o'clock on Friday, and then Georgetown at Providence also at 7 o'clock. So get your 4 TVs lined up, and then just have them all playing at once at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, and one thing that sticks out to me when you're looking at this Villanova-Creighton matchup, right, is the Wildcats are hot right now. And a reason that they're hot right now is that they're having all these other role players really upping the ante and getting a lot more scoring than they were earlier in the season. You look back to the last time that Villanova played Creighton, Bridget Hurley only had 4 points in that game. And now look at the production that she had this past weekend.
Right.
So that is one thing that I think is different about this Villanova Wildcats team this second time around. And then when you look at Providence, Georgetown, and Xavier, the 3 teams who are tied at the bottom, It's going to be interesting to see how this thing shakes out because Georgetown and Providence play one another on Friday night, and Xavier has the tough task of the Metropolitan Swing this weekend.
Yeah, and then Providence taking on Villanova. They'll be at home on Sunday. I'm actually on that game. So we were talking a little bit about momentum and moving in through the weekend and getting them into that push of the tournament. That is so true in so many aspects because having a great weekend, the final weekend of regular season play, sometimes can give you the push you need, or it can set you back if you don't have a great weekend.
Oh yeah, that point could not be more true.
Yeah. So very interesting. Like we said, we've been talking about it for weeks. Every weekend is so important. And like we said, that middle chunk of those teams, of the standings that don't have a bye yet are fighting for that this weekend. So it's going to be very interesting how this one plays out.
Like Ashley said, you can catch games on FS1 and FS2 this weekend. Also, all the other games will be streaming live on the Big East Digital Network. Be sure to tune in because you want to see how all of these are going to shake out. And then be sure to continue to tune in with us because next week we are coming at you live from the Windy City. Fast Break will be live from Wintrust Arena, and we will have tournament coverage for you all week long. If you head over to @BigEastWBB on Twitter, also head over to our Instagram page. You do not want to miss a second.
Yeah, we may or may not have some deep dish in hand as we do the show. I don't know.
Teaser.
To be announced.
Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode of Fast Break. For Ashley Lyotis and Megan Caffrey, we'll see you next time.